On the run from the authorities, these people took drastic measures to ensure they wouldn't be recognized. Today, we present you with 8 bandits who used plastic surgery to evade capture. Number 8. Giovanni Rebolledo. Colombian Giovanni Rebolledo was arrested in 2012 for his involvement with the Los Topos criminal gang. The gang would use beautiful women to seduce wealthy men into going home with them. Once the men were in the gang's control, they were tortured by electric shocks, forcing them into surrendering their bank cards, PIN numbers, and other valuables. Rebolledo was looking at 60 years in prison for robbery, kidnapping, and extortion, but managed to escape and underwent an emergency makeover to become Rosalinda. He spent almost $15,000 on a nose job, breast implants, and a bottom operation. Under the new identity, Rebolledo began working as a prostitute in the city of Barranquilla in the Valle Prado district. Despite his new appearance, officers from a vice squad still recognized the wanted man during a routine stop and search, and he was arrested. Number 7. Tatsuya Ichihashi. Following a nationwide manhunt, Japanese man Tatsuya Ichihashi was captured in 2009 after spending 2.5 years as a fugitive. He was wanted for the rape and murder of a British woman. English teacher Lindsay Ann Hawker's body was discovered in 2007 in a bathtub filled with sand on the balcony of Ichihashi's apartment. From prison, Ichihashi wrote a book entitled Until the Arrest, in which he admits to killing Hawker. Although he doesn't describe the murder or the reason behind it, he does talk about the extreme lengths he went to in order to change his appearance. He escaped the police after they came to question him at his apartment, and shortly afterwards tried to make his nose narrower by binding it up with thread and needle. He suffered excruciating pain as he cut off part of his lower lip in a public bathroom in an attempt to make it thinner. After seeing a wanted poster with his face on it, Ichihashi used a box cutter to slice off the moles on his left cheek. At the time, police were offering the equivalent of $121,000 for information leading to his arrest. With the money earned from a series of construction jobs, Ichihashi got 2 more operations on his nose, but staff from the second clinic noticed traces of the moles Ichihashi had tried to cut off and thought that something about him was strange. They sent his photos to the police, which eventually led to his capture. Number 6. Andrew Moran. Andrew Moran was among Britain's most wanted fugitives. He was first arrested in 2009 for the armed robbery of Royal Mail Guards. Armed with a machete, a baseball bat, and a handgun, Moran assaulted one of the guards and took £25,000. Before his scheduled court appearance, Moran vaulted from the docks at Burnley Crown Court, assaulting 4 security officers in the process. While living on the run, he avoided arrest with the help of cosmetic surgery. He had an operation to remove a mole on his chin that was visible in the images released of him as a wanted man. Moran also had several aliases and remained on the run using fake Lithuanian and Irish passports. He was almost caught in November 2012, but managed to escape after a terrifying car chase in which he drove the wrong way on the AP7 highway that runs along the Mediterranean coast. After 4 years as a fugitive, he was eventually arrested with his girlfriend in Spain following a raid at his villa near Alicante and subsequently extradited to Britain. Sources claim that Moran was scheduled for laser eye surgery prior to his capture, as he feared the glasses he wore would help identify him. Number 5. Ronnie Biggs. Londoner Biggs was part of the Great Train Robbery of 1963 and became one of the most famous fugitives in the world. He and his accomplices stole the equivalent of around $7 million from a Royal Mail train. Biggs was later captured and given a sentence of 30 years in prison. After serving 15 months of his sentence, he scaled a 30-foot wall and escaped Wandsworth prison. Fleeing to France, he had plastic surgery and left for Australia under a new name. With authorities closing in, Biggs was one step ahead and evaded capture again by fleeing to Brazil. With his wife pregnant, the government refused to extradite the father of a future Brazilian. During this time, Biggs capitalized on his fame and made several television appearances, released a best-selling autobiography, and even recorded a song with punk band The Sex Pistols entitled "No One Is Innocent." As his health was declining, Biggs voluntarily returned to England in 2001 and surrendered himself to the authorities after spending 13,068 days on the run. Number 4. Luis Carlos de Rocha. After 30 years on the run, Luis Carlos de Rocha, also known as Whitehead, was finally arrested in 2017 in the Brazilian city of Sorriso. Described as one of Brazil's biggest cocaine kingpins, de Rocha was boss of an operation that, according to the authorities, produced 5 tons of cocaine every month in Bolivia and Peru, and then smuggled into western Brazil via Venezuelan airspace. De Rocha did not indulge in the flamboyant lifestyle typical of Latin drug lords. He was discreet, avoided attention, and mostly lived in the shadows. Upon his arrest, he reportedly looked 20 years younger. He'd had plastic surgery to make him harder to recognize from the old photos police had of him. He dyed the gray hair that gave him his nickname and grew a beard. De Rocha assumed a new identity, Vito Luis de Moraes, but police became suspicious of Moraes, and identification experts called in, compared new photos to older ones, and concluded that they were the same person. Number 3. John Dillinger. At the height of his criminal activity during the Depression-era United States, John Dillinger was named Public Enemy Number 1. A notorious gangster accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations, among several other illegal activities. He was in shootouts with law enforcement and escaped from jail twice. Once by threatening a guard with a wooden gun. His gang, known as Terror Gang or Dillinger Gang, became the campaign platform for J. Edgar Hoover's modernization of the Bureau of Investigation, which later became the FBI. Dillinger was revered by the media, who portrayed him as a Robin Hood-like figure through exaggerated accounts of his colorful personality and bravado. Constantly on the run from the police, Dillinger's face was among the most recognizable in the United States, so he took steps to change his appearance. Doctors Wilhelm Losser and Harold Cassidy operated on him to remove his signature dimples, a scar on his upper lip, and 2 moles on his face. He also wanted the angle of his mouth drawn up and the depression of his nose filled in. He reportedly had Dr. Losser use a mixture of nitric and hydrochloric acid to burn off his fingerprints. Unfortunately, plastic surgery was still in its infancy at the time, was painful, and ultimately ineffective, as Dillinger was ultimately caught and killed. Number 2. Amado Carrillo Fuentes. After assassinating his boss, Rafael Aguila Guajardo, Mexican drug lord Amado Carrillo Fuentes took control of the Juarez cartel, nicknamed El Señor de los Cielos, or the Lord of the Skies, because he used a large fleet of jets to smuggle drugs. He financed his massive fleet by laundering money via Colombia. With Fuentes at the reins, the cartel built a drug empire that generated billions of dollars in revenue. It's thought that Fuentes made around $25 billion throughout his criminal career. Keeping a low profile, he acted more like a businessman than one of the drug lords in the late 80s who seemed to use their wealth to mock law enforcement. By some estimates, more than 60% of his revenue was diverted towards the bribing of Mexican politicians, generals, and the police. Fuentes' infrastructure eventually began to collapse in the mid-90s, and pressure to capture him intensified among US and Mexican authorities. Fuentes decided that changing his appearance through plastic surgery would help him evade capture. He underwent abdominal liposuction and facial surgery in July 1997, but died during the operation due to complications caused either by medication or a faulty respirator. The 2 doctors that had performed the operation on Fuentes were found dead in November 1997. Their bodies, which showed signs of torture, had been encased in concrete and placed inside steel drums. Number 1. Juan Carlos Ramirez Abedaya. Juan Carlos Ramirez Abadía has been referred to as one of the most powerful and elusive drug traffickers in Colombia. Between 1990 and 2003, Abadía is believed to have been responsible for the smuggling of several hundred tons of cocaine into the US. His operations earned him a fortune that's estimated at $1.8 billion. Abadía first entered the world of drug trafficking in 1986, aged 23, under the Cali cartel, smuggling drugs into Los Angeles, California, and San Antonio, Texas, through Mexico, using routes along the Pacific coast and relying primarily on go-fast boats and shipping containers. In the mid-1990s, Abadía, also known as Chupeta, was the Cali cartel's youngest leader. He surrendered to Colombian officials in 1996 due to what the authorities believed was fear for his personal safety, but maintained control of his operation throughout his sentence. After his release in 2002, Abadía switched to the Norte del Valle cartel and became one of its leaders, wanted by US authorities under murder, drug smuggling, and RICO charges. In 2004, the US State Department placed a $5 million bounty for information leading to his arrest. Abadía fled to Brazil and assumed a new identity, despite extensive plastic surgery that had rendered him almost unrecognizable and a tendency to constantly change his hair, clothes, and general appearance. Chupeta was ultimately captured with the help of voice recognition software.
Hey guys, it's Angelo, producer of this channel. I wanted to let you all know I've set up a Patreon account where I'll be offering very exciting and very exclusive bonus footage available only to people on Patreon. There, your voice will be heard regarding things you want to see and which direction I take my channel. Click on the end screen here to find out more, or on the link in the description below. Thanks guys, and I hope to see you on Patreon soon.